We're rotating phaser frequencies and assimilating other species. That's right, it's Star Trek Away Missions, Battle of Wolf 359 from Gale Force 9. In this tactical tussle of Trekkies, two players each take control of opposing away teams, each vying to complete individual missions. Over 3 rounds of combat, players will maneuver characters, fire phasers, and attempt to outwit the opposing away team. The player who gains the most mission points after 3 rounds wins the game. Setup begins with mission and support decks. Each away team has a set of pre-made starter decks for the first game, consisting of a 20-card support deck and a 20-card mission deck. Players should separately shuffle these decks and place them face down in their personal play area. In future games, players can build their own decks by following the instructions on page 12 of the rules. Players also take the characters, dice, and character cards for their away team. Character cards may contain the character's name and role, specializations, keywords identifying various attributes. Some game effects apply to characters with certain keywords. Attack action or actions, a special ability, and ratings for attack, defense, skill, and movement. Players then set pegs in all holes of each of these ratings. Next, players prepare the mission. Each player rolls a die, and the player with the higher roll takes the mission corridor tile and places it in the center of the table with either the Federation or Borg side face up, along with the 4 other mission boards nearby. That same player takes one of the mission boards and places it adjacent to the corridor. The other player places 2 more mission boards in this way, and the first player places a final board. Note that as many doors as possible should connect to the main corridor and other mission boards, leaving as few doors as possible blocked. Then, place turbo lift tiles next to any unconnected doors on the main corridor board. Players next take their core mission card and select a side to play for this game. The mission contains an objective that will score the player extra points in the endgame if they fulfill its requirements. Each player's mission deck also contains mission cards with objectives and points, which can be played during the game, including to interrupt an opponent's action. Players beam down their characters into the mission area. Players again roll a die to see who beams down first. The winner picks one of the mission boards, except the main corridor or a turbo lift, to be their starting area. The other player then chooses 2 other mission boards to be their starting areas, and the initial player takes the final mission board as the remainder of their starting area. Mission boards are divided into spaces denoted by the white lines. Beginning with the first player and alternating between each other, the players take turns placing characters one at a time on any space in their starting areas until all characters are placed. No more than 2 characters can be placed in a single space. After this mission preparation is complete, gameplay occurs over 3 rounds, each divided into 2 phases, the draw phase and the action phase. First up in the draw phase, both players discard any cards of their choosing in their current hand. In the first round, this step is skipped because players don't have any cards in hand yet. Then, players draw cards from their support deck until they have 5 support cards in hand. They then do the same with mission cards, up to a total of 5 mission cards in hand. In the first round of the game, there's a mulligan rule known as reverse polarity, where each player may discard any or all of their cards from their hand to their decks, shuffle them, and draw back up to 5 each. Finally, in the clear the board step, players remove activated tokens from characters. This is also skipped in the first round because characters have yet to be activated. Alright, let's take a look at the actions. Move. When taking the move action, a character can move a number of spaces equal to their current move rating. When moving, they cannot enter a space which contains hostile characters or is blocked by a blocking edge, the thick black line along some spaces. And they cannot end their movement in a space that already contains 2 friendly characters. Some other rules on movement. Turbo lifts are all considered adjacent to one another, but only if they were on a separate board. Turbo lifts on the same board are not considered adjacent. Blocked edges prevent characters from moving through them, as well as seeing across them, which will be important for ranged attacks. Door edges are marked with dotted white lines, and when no characters are in a space bordering the door, it's considered closed and acts as a blocked edge. As soon as a character enters a space next to it, it's open and characters can see through it. It's motion sensor. Transporter spaces can be used when certain event or equipment cards come into play, allowing players to move their characters through them. And doors which don't have a connecting board or a turbo lift space are considered blocked doors and cannot be used, because you would walk into space and die in the vacuum. The attack action. The character uses one of the attack actions from their card or a support card. Attack actions may have a number of additional attack dice, bonus damage, and special rules. Next, the character chooses a target within line of sight. Line of sight rules are pretty simple. The character has to be able to draw a straight line from their space to a hostile character's space, regardless of their mini's exact physical placement within it. It's just space to space. If a blocked edge gets in the way, or if a friendly character is in a space between them and the target, the line of sight doesn't work. Once a legal target is found, the player rolls a number of dice equal to the character's attack rating, plus any bonus dice provided by the attack action. Additionally, a character gains one extra attack die if they have a friendly character in the same space. Once rolled, line up the dice on the dice board in descending order of result. Note that sixes are represented by the away team's faction symbol. Next, the opposing player rolls a number of defense dice equal to the target's defense rating, gaining a bonus die if they have a friendly character in the same space. Any remaining paired attack dice deal 1 damage each. Any unpaired attack dice only deal a damage on a 4 or higher. 1s through 3s are ignored. Unpaired defense dice are also ignored. Damage is tracked by removing a peg from the character's card for each point taken in any rating. This reduces their ratings overall and can even neutralize a character. The player cannot reduce any rating below 1, and if they would have to reduce a rating already at its lowest value, the character is neutralized and removed from the mission area, discarding any equipment or trait cards as well. Take cover action. This allows the character to place a take cover token on their character card. The next time they are attacked, they gain an additional defense die for their roll. If they leave their current space, they discard the token. Special actions. These include actions on events, equipment, and missions. Some actions require a skill test. When rolling skill tests, the player rolls a number of dice equal to the character's skill rating, and each individual die that results in 4 or higher is considered a success. Some skill tests specify a specialization. Characters that have that specialization roll an additional die for that skill test. If a character has a specialization twice or even 3 times, they gain an additional die for each time they have that specialization. Some skill tests are opposed, meaning the active player becomes the tester while the opponent is the challenger. Rather than attempting results of 4 or higher, both players roll dice equal to the skill rating of their characters and link them up on the dice board. Compare the skill dice and any challenger die that equals or exceeds the tester die to cancel it out. All others are successes, but any uncontested skill dice are successes only on a 4 or higher. And those are the actions. In addition to actions on cards, players can also draw instead of taking an action. They can draw a card from their support deck, or discard a mission card from their hand and draw a new one to replace it. Or they can just pass if they wish to take no action. Play continues over 3 rounds, after which players end the game with beam up and debrief. Players score by adding together any end-of-game mission cards in their hand if they've met those scoring conditions, any points scored from their core mission card, and all points scored from missions throughout the game. The player with the highest score wins. And that's the basics of Star Trek away missions. After your first game or 2, maybe boldly go on to build your own deck. Additionally, there are 2 expansions featuring Romulan and Klingon away teams. And if you check out page 26 of the rules, you can find how to play with 3 or 4 players. I'm Becca Scott, This is Good Time Society, and resistance is futile. Just stop resisting and hit that subscribe button, like the video, and be sure to beam on back for more great games and good times.